What is up, guys? I'm Stu with the Gym Real Estate Company. We help gym owners lease and buy buildings. And today I'm going to walk you through how to negotiate a personal guarantee, alternatives to having a personal guarantee, and ways to kind of find a happy medium between you and the landlord when negotiating this. So first off, let's talk about a personal guarantee. A personal guarantee essentially means you, the person, are going to guarantee your LLC's lease, right? So with a personal guarantee, you have a lease. And generally, the LLC is signing it, making the LLC the tenant. The personal guarantee is going to come in and is going to say that if the tenant, the LLC, is unable to meet the rent obligations, you, the person, will cover that. So it puts you in a position where you as a person financially guaranteeing that this rent will get paid. Because remember, an LLC, a limited liability company, is established to protect you as a person. It creates this shield in between the two so that you can operate as a business and that business would be liable for things, not you, the person. A personal guarantee is a landlord's way to ensure they are going to get paid rent, even if the LLC is unable to do so. Now let's talk about the two types of personal guarantees. There's unlimited and limited. So an unlimited personal guarantee means that you owe the entire initial term and any renewals of that lease, meaning you personally are liable. In an unlimited, it pretty much means that no matter what, even if you go out of business, your gym closes down, even if you default, meaning you go ahead and you violate the terms of the lease, you up and move, whatever, or an act of God. This is like you see a lot of what we call force majeure clauses, especially post-COVID. Typically, an unlimited personal guarantee means no matter what, you are still personally liable for the entire initial term of that lease. It could be a 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, whatever the initial term of the lease is, and potentially could include renewables. A limited PG essentially means you're only limited to some of the entire term. So you could have something where it goes, it's a 10-year initial term, and you have an unlimited for years 1 through 5, and then from years 6 through 10, you are only responsible for 50% of the owed rent during that period of time, you personally. So if the business could not afford to, or they weren't in a position to, you personally would have to make up, you'd only be responsible for 50% of what the business had guaranteed. This could look a bunch of different ways. We'll show some a little bit later, but ultimately just understand unlimited, you personally are on the hook for the entire thing. Limited, we are limiting that liability. So when a landlord wants an unlimited personal guarantee, and let's say we're talking about a 10-year term, and we want to reduce that liability for our client here at the Gym Real Estate Company, we might go ahead and do something like a burn off or a step down. Essentially, we start with an unlimited structure for a certain period of time, and then as time goes on in the lease, it drops down. So in this example, it's unlimited in year 1, it drops down to 75% in year 2, 50% in year 3, and then down by 25%, obviously. And then for the remainder, it remains at 25%. Now, we could negotiate that if the tenant was comfortable with still being personally liable for 25% of the owed rent during the last years 5 through 10. However, what we could also try to negotiate is a complete burn off. And that complete burn off would mean that everything going down to year 10 now is at 0%. There is no liability whatsoever. So a complete burn off just means that your personal guarantee liability goes to 0. This is a nice way to do it because as you prove that you are able to pay the rent, the landlord feels more comfortable. Personal guarantees are set up because the landlord doesn't know you. And if you are a startup, or maybe you only have one other location in operation, they don't know you in terms of like, oh, there's a significant track record here of successful rental performance. So this allows the landlord to get more comfortable with you. And as they get more comfortable with you and you successfully pay your rent, we're able to burn down that PG. The next option, and I don't see it very often unless there's a great relationship with the landlord and the tenant from some type of previous engagement, is a good guy clause. A good guy clause simply says, hey, things didn't work out. And as long as the tenant provides ample notice, generally this could be 360 days, 180 days, again, the number is going to vary, and has never been in default, meaning they have never had late payments. They have a good history leading up to this. Maybe things have been fine, and then your wife wins the lottery and you're going to move to Barbados and you want to just be done with the lease, but you got 6 more years on it. Well, if you had a good guy clause in the lease, this would allow you to get out instantly, as long as you've always paid your rent on time, you've never defaulted on the lease in any other way, you provide the proper notice, you do not abandon any of your FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, okay? Anything, you can't just leave shit in there. It's got to go. And you leave the place clean. Broom swept clean, just a nice condition so the landlord can go ahead and do his thing to acquire another tenant. Now, you may be also liable for other things. Maybe the landlord made improvements to the space and gave you TI that they might want some money back on that. They may also want money back on commissions, anything they paid on that property to get you in there to brokers and agents. Those are things that are also subject to conversation and negotiation when installing a good guy clause into a lease. The last one I'm going to talk about is a rolling PG. Essentially what this means is that during the lease, if you want out at any reason, you can get out. However, you will be liable for a certain amount of months' rent thereafter. This is generally very favorable to a landlord because the problem is once you leave, it's not like they have someone lined up to come in immediately afterwards. There is going to be a period of they've got to list it, get it on the market, get a listing agent again. They've got to advertise it. They got to interview. They got to have tenants come through and look at it. There's months and months and months of negotiation before they actually get another cash flowing tenant in there. So the landlord might do something with, and the most common I see is a 1-year rolling PG that the landlord says, cool, you're out, but I need 1 year's worth of rent from you. I don't need the rest. You can walk away from this, but I'm getting 1 year's worth of rent from you so that I am able to fund this downtime I'm going to have since you are leaving me. For example, let's say you're doing a 10-year term. 10-year initial lease term, and years 1 through 3 are going to be unlimited. The landlord's going to say for the first 36 months, you have an unlimited PG in here, which typically isn't a problem because if you plan on going out of business within the first 36 months, we got bigger problems. But then thereafter, you can get out of the lease, but you're going to have to pay 12 months of rent from the point that you are leaving forward. So whenever that month is, whatever that rent is, go forward 12 months, that amount of money would have to be paid. Typically, I found most landlords will do payment plans on this. It's not like you're going to be, forced to put it all up front. There's generally reasonable terms we can attribute to this. But this gives the landlord the runway to now find another source of income since you have essentially taken his assumed previous source of income. A 1-year rolling PG, while to a gym owner listening, it's like, fuck, that's a lot of money. Yeah. But you're also calling quits on a contract you signed. It'd be like if a member of yours signed a 1-year contract and wanted out after month 3. You probably have some financial way of recouping those funds. But a 1-year rolling PG is another way because otherwise, if you had a 10-year lease, you'd still be liable at the end of year 3 if you wanted to quit for 7 more years. This is a much better option from a financial perspective. If you're a gym owner looking to lease or buy a building, you want help with this process at no cost to you. Me and my team are the only nationwide firm that specifically focuses on fitness and wellness. We'd love to talk to you about your project. Thanks for watching the video.